All right, Capricorn, thanks for tuning in to your December of 2014 horoscope. My name is Athen. Okay, so the emphasis this month is on your 12th house. House of spirituality, but the house of presence. You know, it's not spirituality like the 9th house, which has to do with your life path and your connection to the higher realms through channeling and that sort of thing. It's presence. It's the Buddhic, Christed house. It has to do with compassion and the heart chakra. So it's very high frequency, all right? And you guys have had Pluto transiting this 12th house for a long time, and so there's been a lot of transformations taking place to your spirituality in general over the past many years. So this is another month where there's some positive transformations happening there and helping you perhaps release some attachments in terms of that, or just overall stepping into your spiritual power. Because that's what Pluto in the 12th house essentially turns into, is spiritual power. And of course that's power through the heart, power through compassion. So the main reason why there's so much emphasis is because there's going to be the second to last square with Uranus and Pluto this month, right in the middle of the month on the 15th, and so it's affecting pretty much the whole month, especially around the 10th through the 20th. But this is the second to last, okay, which means it's final lessons learned. Okay, finally stepping into that power and then putting it into action, creating constructive changes to your life, especially involving spirituality, over the next 4 months up until March. Okay, and then March will be the final aspect in which things it's just done. It's like, okay, we've got it, we're ready to put it into our lives. And it won't be such a learning experience. This is about learning. Okay, so the first thing that's happening this month in terms of the 12th house is Venus goes into that 12th from the 11th. So last month there was a lot of activity in your 11th house, which has to do with your ideals, perhaps some group related things or collective, lots of focus on the community, that kind of thing. Or perhaps the value that you're getting through your work, the importance of the underlying, that work isn't just about money. For example, it's also about the fact that you enjoy what you do for a living, that kind of thing. And the shift then goes into your 12th house, starting with Venus on the 5th. And so with Venus, that's about enjoying your spirituality and seeing the immense enjoyment of life when you're present and compassionate, okay? Coming from the heart chakra, and again, releasing attachments. So from the 5th to the 13th, Venus is going to be the only one in there. So really pay attention during that time period about those things and enjoy it. Go out into nature, go meditate, go do these spiritual things. And meditation is not just sitting down, it's hiking, it's hanging out with friends, it's cooking, it's cleaning, it's work. Anything that puts you into a meditative state, which can be anything, and just bringing more presence into your life and seeing how spirituality isn't just about discipline and forcing yourself to go meditate. It's about just bringing more presence and seeing how just a little bit of extra presence in your everyday life creates so much peace and harmony and overall enjoyment in this sense with Venus. Then on the 13th, then things I think you're really going to start to be thinking about the more spiritual stuff, the behind the scenes activities from the 13th onward when Mercury's in that 12th. Really pay attention to your dreams from the 13th onward, and pay attention to how your mind is playing a role in presence, because the mind is something that can prevent us from being present, and often does in today's society, but it doesn't have to. You can observe the mind without being attached to it or without identifying with it. So not being your mind, but observing the mind, that kind of thing. But noticing how your mind is actually very useful and provides a lot of good information, so long as it's not owning you, controlling you, and which takes you away from that state of presence, of course, because presence is source energy, it's pure consciousness. So pay attention to that from the 13th onward, and then the sun is going to be going in there on the 15th, and the 15th is when we have the square. So the middle of the month, there's the shift, and for you, first it's that, I think, understanding the creative elements of the universe, or perhaps how you can create more in your life and be yourself through presence, okay? And this is where the square goes exact, so I think that's strongly emphasized with that as well. And the square is involving Uranus in your 3rd house, okay? So Uranus in the 3rd has been showing you guys how to be yourself with your communication, okay? How to express yourself, because yourself is trying to come out through your throat chakra, and also come out through, you know, and it's happening in the top 3 chakras essentially with the 3rd house. Your true self is trying to come out. Okay, whether it's through you know, communicating, or if it's through consciousness in terms of you being able to see it linking up with it. So this is a square involving the 12th and the 3rd, which essentially has to do with you, again, being your true self and merging that with your spirituality, okay, and allowing your mind to integrate with your higher self. Uranus is your higher self embodied, and the 3rd house is a very mundane house. It has to do with your physical mind, your physical expression, your physical body in that sense, okay, in the air sense. And when Uranus is transiting that 3rd, you're essentially anchoring down the higher self through those areas, through your mind. That whenever you are consciously linked to your higher self, which means you are oriented towards the same thing, then you'll notice that there's a link, and you're consciously oriented with your higher self, and then there's freedom. Or you're consciously oriented with your higher self, then the communications are flowing, the relationships are flowing, everything in your life is flowing, because your mind, your human mind, is linked with the higher self. What I would really recommend for this actually is take a look at your guys' North Node in your personal chart if you do decide to do that. The more I do astrology, the more I realize the importance of the North Node in terms of linking our conscious mind to our higher self. The North Node being our higher self's perspective. But anyways, linking up with it, okay, whatever that means for you individually, you're going to find a tremendous amount of freedom in that, okay? And it's a freedom of presence, it's a freedom of spirituality, it's a freedom of peace in your life. Because the square is the mind perhaps being active and wanting you to believe some nonsense. You know, there's a part of that going on with Uranus in the 3rd house. It's trying to show you that the mind plays a role, but it's not the active role. The active role is your pure consciousness. And seeing that there is a link there between your higher self, and it just takes that presence, okay, which is the 12th house, the restructuring that's going on with your spirituality. There's presence that's needed in order for you to be that link between your higher self and your conscious mind. So bringing those two together, you're going to find this tremendously freeing and tremendously transformative in your life, okay? Now, this is, like I said, especially around the 15th. Then on the 20th, we have a lot of personal planets going over Pluto. So what this has to do is releasing a lot of attachments to certain areas of our life. Starts with Venus, so releasing attachments to relationships and seeing how when we do that, there's a tremendous amount of freedom and peace in our lives. Then Mercury, again, releasing the attachments to our thoughts and our communications, creates peace and presence in our life. Then at the very end of the month, on the Sun will go over Pluto, which has to do with releasing any attachments to any creation that we do, creative projects or just whatever we're creating, maybe it's artistic or whatever, but it's us. We go through the final transformation at the very end with the Sun over Pluto. So releasing attachments to self and releasing attachments to your self-expression as well. So that's where things start to become really personal around the 20th. So pay attention to how things are being mirrored back to you in relationships in terms of that, but it mirrored back to you in the external reality. But use the first part of this month to really go within. Okay, use all of this energy. Now's the month to really, like I said, pay attention to your dreams, do the meditative stuff, and you're going to notice that you're gaining a sense of awareness through this whole process. And Pluto is doing some stuff, because Pluto is very deep, very unconscious stuff. And there's integrations happening that are outside of our awareness as humans. And just feel into it this month, especially out of your awareness, because Pluto's in your 12th. So it's just paying attention to the dream space and what's going on in the etheric realms, the emotional body, but noticing how the changes are benefiting your life, how they're creating more peace and presence, right, in a more open heart too, and also, you know, improving your relationships and all that mundane stuff from the 20th onward. Okay. Now the 20th plays a very important role because there's a lot of activity. There's the fast-moving planets going over, like I just talked about, but there's also Mars sextiling up to Uranus during this time, and Mars is in your first house, okay? So this month, there's a strong emphasis on your goals, your ambitions, what you're achieving, okay? And this is good. You really want to focus on these things this month while you're in the state of presence, right? Focus on those goals, those ambitions, and you're going to notice that it's invoking that freedom. It's helping release the old notions, the old ideas and stuff, okay? And helping you be your higher self, essentially link up consciously with it. So this is the month. Mars is very benefic, very positive aspects in the chart. So this is the month to really, I feel, put in a lot of work into your work, or into whatever your goals are. Okay, and there's any goals. Home could be home projects, could be work, could be relationships, whatever. And I do want to say there is balancing that's needed here with relationships. So just be sure that you are spending enough time with relationships. Jupiter goes retrograde in your 7th house on the 9th. There's been a lot of positivity, a lot of expansion in the relationship sector over the past almost the past year. So from the 9th onward, just reflect on how your relationship stuff's unfolding and how there's so much abundance there, because there actually is. So see that. It's just a matter of seeing the abundance, and that's what Jupiter is showing you. And that's the last retrograde he's going to do in that 7th. So then you'll be on your way and on to the 8th and so forth. But really using this time to see that there's abundance in relationships all the time, not just when Jupiter's transiting the 7th, and what relationships are really about. But balance that with your goals and projects. So obviously, whatever you're doing, just make sure you're spending enough time with those that you're close to and with friends and stuff. And I think you'll find that very enjoyable too, because Jupiter's benefic, and that usually helps us expand and feel more free in this sense with relationships. Okay, so now also on the 20th, let's see, we talked about Mars. Uranus goes station direct on the 21st. Okay, so right around that same time period, you're going to notice, I think, when you're doing the spiritual transformation through the dream space and all this stuff, is going to be a sense of freedom. And this is when things really shift. This is also when the new moon takes place. It's right on that Uranus station direct. And the new moon is in that 12th house of yours on the 21st. So I think there's going to be a sense of freshness, a new understanding about what compassion is, what presence is, what spirituality is. And that's going to invoke a tremendous amount of freedom. And it's going to be a freedom of mind, a freedom of consciousness, okay? The ability to just experience life consciously without putting any mental projections onto it, and not allowing the mind to escape into any fantasies or projections or illusions, okay? And remember, it all comes from that state of presence. But that's when things are really going to start fresh. And this is really nice because it's the beginning of the year. And so for you, the beginning of the year is going to have a clarity, I feel. A clarity of what importance that freedom of mind creates in your life, and also presence and compassion it has in your life as well. And so use this time, like I said, up and through March, to make those constructive changes in the spiritual sector, meditative sector, also linking your connection to consciousness, to source essence through the heart, and freedom of mind, okay, and communication. So use that time constructively for the next few months, because this is it. This is the more work we put in, the more constructive work we put in between now and March, the more positivity, the more clearing house, the more garbage is going to be removed. And the garbage is being removed from your psyche. Okay, it's being removed from behind the scenes stuff that's just no longer needed, no longer necessary. Okay. And then there's a tremendous amount of freedom, and I think that freedom can really be enjoyed when you put in that restructuring for the next few months. Now, in terms of this, these fast-moving planets, one thing I forgot to mention is that Chiron and Neptune are both sextiling up to all of these fast-moving planets over Pluto from the 20th onward, okay? So notice that this transformation does not have to be intense, okay? It can be very present. And when you approach it in that way, in that flow, there is a tremendous amount of healing that's taking place in that process. So lots of healing, and the healing is really healing your sense of value, your sense of worth. And through that, you're going to notice that you're just able to be more at peace with presence and flow in your life when you're a willing participant in getting rid of all of that garbage in the 12th house. Okay? So yeah, I think really connecting to your heart chakra, really connecting to source presence, and staying very grounded this month, I feel, for everybody. Okay, so let's talk about that. Saturn is the grounding element, and he's been in your 11th house. He just recently went in there at the beginning of November. So your grounding element this month and for the next 2 years, 2.5 years, is your ideals. Use your ideals, your visions for the future, for both yourself and humanity and your community and the collective, to be your grounding principle, okay? And anchor there, anchor with that. And also anchor with a lot of the enjoyment that you're getting through your work as well, okay? All that energy that you were experiencing back in November was strongly associated with this. Notice how with your work or whatever you're doing to be of service, it's really about you enjoying it, and that's what the true value is, not necessarily monetary or anything external, right? What's under the surface with that. That's also a very strong grounding element for you guys as well. So let's see, I think we talked about everything. The only thing I left out was the full moon this month, which is happening in Taurus, which for you guys is your 5th house. This is happening on the 6th. So pay attention around the 5th, around the 6th in regards to your 5th house, which has to do with your sense of enjoyment for life and your creativity. Really pay attention around the 6th in terms of what you have created and how you can bring more creativity into your life, and overall where creativity comes from. Because the full moon is going to illuminate this part of your chart. I feel like it's strongly associated with this enjoyment that you're seeing with your work and with being grounded with the collective. Is there something there? So pay attention around the 6th in where that zest for life comes from, where your enjoyment comes from for life. And that's going to, I feel, be a very strong motivating principle for you this month. And I think whatever insights you get around the 6th will really support you in these changes this month. All right, guys, so I'm going to draw a card and see where Spirit would like a little more emphasis for you this month. Okay, Saturn. Well, this card's been coming up a lot, so perhaps that is just a reminder to stay very grounded this month, like I was saying, in terms of the transformations. We want to transform to where we have a solid foundation. We don't want to create any sudden destructions that just aren't necessary. We want to keep things nice and grounded, take things one step at a time, but if at any time we notice something needs to be restructured, be willing to do that, okay? But do it in that constructive way like I was talking about. And overall, perhaps just a reminder to stay grounded with those ideals too. While you do have your ideals, be realistic and stay grounded with them. Like I said, that's really forming that grounding element for you guys this month. Just want to let you guys know that I'm offering a special this month. It's a 45-minute recorded reading gift you can give to a friend or family member. And of course, you guys already get 50% off my 1-hour sessions, which you can also extend, and it's a great way to look at the year ahead. All right, well, I hope you guys have a great month, and I'll see you next time. Take care.